Thank you for making me relevant. Thank you for making this topic relevant. I mean, no matter how many numbers of dislikes I get in a video, ultimately, if people keep coming back to watch the next video and commenting, it means that ultimately I am engaging and I am challenging. And if I'm challenging anybody, I assure you, it's me. I'm being challenged in making these videos. I like to make videos that won't necessarily be super popular, but they will be engaging and challenging, as this series is proving to be. If it wasn't, I wouldn't have made this video as another follow-up. So in response to one of my more recent videos that I made, saying that gay men are backing me up, they're agreeing that yes, they have had some kind of shared trauma. They had some kind of trauma that was unresolved in their youth, and or a negative relationship with their father. I want to read this comment. Quote, I believe that 98% of gay people are born gay. But I do think that there may be gays, most often lesbians, who have been abused by men, that they have turned to women for love and support. I think some gay men might too. For the rest, it's part of their DNA, end quote. Let's break that down. So this isn't the only comment I've seen like this, where I've had someone who has stated that even if let's go with this. Let's say 98% of gay men are born gay. We all know that I don't agree. I don't believe that. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that I don't believe that and that everyone else believes something of it. That's not the point of this video. The point is, if we're having people agree with me to 2% of a degree, saying, well, not everybody that's gay was born that way. We need to unpack that. We need to understand that better. Because the mainstream belief is you're born gay. That's the mainstream. I'm part of the the small percent over here who believes you're psychedelically, like you're doing LSD. You're psychologically conditioned to become gay as you sexualize the concept of a fatherly figure, a positive male role model in your life because you didn't have that growing up, and or you had trauma from your childhood. It basically rewires your system and ultimately leads you in that path. Now, most people will say that's not how it is. Most people are gay. Okay. But if we're saying that 2% of the people out there, that is true, specifically lesbians, and people have had somebody say, well, why aren't you making videos talking about lesbians? This channel really is geared toward men. I'm not going to even try to understand what it's like to be a woman and go down that path. I want to make these videos to men who identify as gay. I want to understand you better. That's why I'm focusing on that. So going back to that 2% though. So we are saying then, can we agree that not all men are born gay? What I didn't say is for all. I said, can we agree that for some, even if it's only 2%, can we agree that for even just 2% of men, they weren't born gay, they became that way, they were conditioned that way through the ways that I've been talking about anyway. Specifically, a negative relationship with your father, absent or abusive, physical or emotional. That's the common theme that we're seeing here. So if we can agree that for 2% of the gay men population, that's the case, who's to say it's not more than 2%? Who's to say that a lot of guys, they go along with my theory of the shared background trauma, unresolved, and or negative relationship with their father. And maybe when they were a boy in kindergarten, they're like, oh, that girl's pretty, and they thought they like girls. But when you're a kid, you're not necessarily like, oh, I'm so straight, look at all those pretty girls. I wasn't that way, not really. When I didn't care about that stuff, right? But I eventually became that way. But I think that when the trauma especially happens young enough, how would you ever know that? Because it's not like you're like super hetero when you're a kid. That's my point. So I think that if we can agree that for some of the population, that for 2%, they weren't born gay, it's a slippery slope though, isn't it? Because if there's 2%, who's to say it's not 5%? Who's to say it's not 10%? Who's to say it's not 25%? Who's to say that some of these people we're assuming are born gay actually fall into the category of psychological conditioning to that point? See, it'd be one thing if the people who disagree with me said, Nick, all men who are gay were born that way. And I said, I don't believe that. I think they're conditioned that way. Then this wouldn't be that interesting of a conversation. But it gets really interesting the moment you crack that door open for me a little bit and say that 2% of men were conditioned to become gay based on their life events. And that without those events, they wouldn't have become gay because they weren't born that way. And I feel like we need to address that. I feel like we need to address the fact that if we're going to say all men are gay, it gives me less to talk about, honestly. But if we're going to say 2%, how do you know it's only 2%? How do you know it's not more? And how do you not know that without realizing it, I really am onto something about this idea that a gay man, there was a cause and there was effect. 2%. It's not like we're saying all men were born gay. And if that's how you feel, please leave that in the comment. Please say, you know what, Nick, thanks for making the video, but I disagree with you. I believe 100% of gay men were born gay. They were gay baby boys from the very beginning. That's what I believe. If that's what you believe, say it in the comments. But if you're willing to admit that not all men were born gay, it really muddies the water. It really makes things foggy for us, because it's not an all or nothing situation, and it might just give my theories more credibility. So I'm giving you an opportunity to definitely break down this wall of credibility that I'm imagining that I have right now. Because my focus is to help gay men come to terms with they've got issues to unpack and deal with. It doesn't matter what happens through the rest of your life. Okay, you get married legally, you march in a parade, you become president of the United States. All that happens to you. A gay man's dream. I don't know what a gay man's dream is, but let's say that's what you want to do with your life, and all that happens. But still, in Maslow's hierarchy of needs pyramid, you're still not happy, because ultimately, psychologically, of what happened to you as a kid, and you still have anger and resentment towards your father, or for that man who abused you. Maybe it was someone you trusted. We all know the thing about the priest and how the Catholic Church tried to make that go away, and it didn't. There's all kinds of stories like that. I don't know everyone's story, but I'm seeing a common theme. So, if I'm wrong, I think what we're going to have to do is focus more on the fact that most of you believe that 100% of gay men were born gay, because that gives you more credibility. But this 2% thing, I think people are not allowing themselves to recognize that a boy can be conditioned to become gay. And by doing so, we're ignoring the actual issue of having inner peace by dealing with those with a professional. I think it's a disservice to gay men not to address those issues. I've met so many gay men in my life, and I think about this shared story, that this bitterness they've got towards their father. That's the main thing I keep seeing. And I'm thinking, in my own life, the way I live my life is, I believe that forgiveness is always a choice. Just like being offended or insulted or disrespected, that's always a personal choice. You get to choose if you're offended. You also get to choose if you forgive somebody for anything. Whatever the thing is, in the history of the world, many people have forgiven somebody for much greater things than what that thing is. But here's what I'm getting at. If most gay men have bitterness and resentment towards a certain man in their life that caused that trauma, assuming it's often your father. No one should have to live with that bitter and resentment, because when you have been hurt by someone and you don't forgive them, and you've heard this before, it's like you drinking poison and expecting them to get sick. The whole point of these videos is to help gay men to address these issues, to acknowledge them, address them with a professional so that they can have peace. I'm so happy you're here. Your comments belong right here.